Hello, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful session. Actually, the first session of the year where we have a guest in our midst. So, I'm going to just allow us to come in before I bring our guest into this streaming or into this live video. All right, so I am so delighted for what we're going to have today. It's finding purpose. And are you ready? Because we're about to bring our guest speaker, and she's already here. She's before I bring her into this video, I want to say something about Lynn Wells. Professor Lynn Wells was my lecturer when I was doing my master's program at Brock University, and I'm sure most of you already know the story. And I just got so attracted to this amazing woman. She's always early to her class, even in the cold. She has this beautiful rapport with young people, with the youth in her class, because I was among the older people in her class. But she has this free spirit. She's just so lovely. And you know me, I am very attracted to women who are amazing. And so we just connected, and from lecturer student to friend academic advisor, and that's where we are today. And no other person will be able to give other than Lynn, because she's had different phases of her life, and her life is more like an inspiration to so many, to everyone that comes in contact with her. Coming from Africa, there are people that will get to a particular level, and it's very difficult to assess them. I know there are a few of them which I'm able to assess, but in general, it's very difficult to assess such people because of their portfolio. But this here in the Western society, it's not like that. Even if it's like that, but Lynn, it's a definition of beauty, a definition of brains, a definition of hospitality, care, and all whatnot. And she's more like every student's person. Every student's person. And then before we bring her to talk about what we have her today for, I just want to congratulate her publicly again. She's just been appointed the president of Laurentia University. And I got a few mails when I made the post like, tell me about Laurentia University. Maybe I should apply for Laurentia University. I'm like, don't worry, I'm going to bring Lynn to talk about her school. Maybe in July, when she's settled, we're going to bring her to talk about that university, in case most of you want to, go to Laurentia University for your first degree or second degree. We'll bring her on board to talk about that. So that's what we're going to do. So Lynn, you are welcome. I'm going to allow you to just say hello to the people, and then we'll just dive in.
Great. Thank you so much, Linda. And Linda always says such nice things about me as a professor, and I want to return the compliment by saying, nice things about her as a student. She was so engaged and really brought such great energy to the classroom and interacted so well with her colleagues. So, you can only be a great teacher if you have great students, and it was a great experience getting to know Linda in that way.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. So those of you that were here last year, was it last year? No, I think it
I
was
think so.
2022. It was 2022 April that we brought her to talk about the 360 degree youth. So if you were here that year, can you just say I was there? Put it in the comment section. I was there. I want to know those who still remember her, because I'm seeing new people. But if you were there 2 years ago when we had it, can you just say I was there? Just put in the comment section I was there. But if you were not there, not a problem. We're going to try to repost that video so that those who missed it can watch it, or we can bring her again to discuss something like, okay, we saw someone that said I was there. Yes, thank you. Who else was there 2 years ago when we had her? Just say I was there, so that we'll know how many we are. Okay. Adrian, you say you were there. Okay, good. So today we're looking at purpose, and Lynn is there to address the journey to discovery of your purpose. And it's not something very, very big. Like, the way we magnify everything. And she's going to take us through her journey in relationship, in her life, in career, mistakes, strengths, and all that. And what has brought her to this point, because I see purpose in all phases of our lives. And that's what accumulate to bring us to where we are meant to be, and like I always told us, okay, Hosanna, you said you were there. Oh, great. Okay, we have people that were there 2 years ago. That's amazing. So please, let's begin to invite our friends to join us. I know that we're doing it on Instagram. A lot of them wanted Facebook, but I just felt Instagram would be a lot better. So back to what I was saying. So Lynn was going to just give us a brief introduction of her life and how she's been able to find purpose that has brought her to where she is at this point. And then we're going to get right into the questions for her. All right. So the floor is yours.
Great. Well, thank you, Linda. And as your life goes on, your story gets longer and longer.
Yeah.
And the great thing is you can kind of choose different parts of it to tell. So, um, I'll start somewhere near the beginning and try not to make it a terribly long story. But I grew up in a very, very small town, actually, kind of out in the country, in southern Ontario, and I was youngest child in a family of three. My father was an auto worker, and he only had a grade 6 education. He had to leave home very young because he was in an abusive family, and he had to leave home at 14. And he ended up marrying my mother when he was 20 and she was 17. My mother did finish high school, and they got together very young and had these 3 kids and had no money really, and had a difficult time. That being said, we weren't impoverished. We always had lots to eat, had a roof over my head, and so on. But we certainly weren't wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. My father eventually became a manager. He was a very good leader, and I learned a lot from my father. I think about him every day because he was a real inspiration to me. He was very gentle and very kind with people, but he was also very clear on when he needed something done and how he needed it done. So he became eventually a manager at the auto factory, and so we had a bit more money. One of the things that was very difficult in my childhood is that my mother, I would say that she had undiagnosed mental illness, that she suffered from depression, and she would be at times very kind and very pleasant, but at times very, very difficult and very angry and very mean to all of us. So I had a brother and a sister. And my sister in particular experienced a lot of hardship in her relationship with her mother. She was very soft-hearted, and it was very hard on her. I think partly because of that home situation, and also because I experienced a great deal of bullying at school, really, really, really terrible bullying. I was very tall and very skinny back then.
And she's still very tall.
I'm still pretty tall. I'm not so skinny, but I was awfully tall and skinny back then. And I was bullied a lot at school, beaten up, treated very badly by other children. And so the combination of having a very difficult home life and a very difficult school life, even though I did very well at school, meant that I was, very depressed myself a lot of the time. And that led to my developing a mental illness called anorexia nervosa, which is a disease in which you stop eating. And I came very close to dying from anorexia when I was about 15. I was fortunate in that I found a way to recovery. And to be honest, looking back, I'm not even sure how, how I did that, because at that time, doctors really didn't know much about that disease or how to treat it. But I just remember one day thinking, I'm going to die and I don't want to die. And that led to a road to recovery, which was really good. And then I, ended up doing really well at high school. And I've always been fortunate in that I always knew exactly what I wanted to do. I always wanted to be an English professor. I've always loved books. I love literature. I love talking to people about books. I love writing. And so I always knew exactly what I wanted to do. And it was that sense of purpose that carried me through a lot of difficult things when I was young. When I was a teenager, I always knew that I wanted to go to university. I settled on the university I wanted to get to, and I worked very, very hard to get high grades so that I could get a scholarship because even though by that point my parents had a bit more money, they were not supportive of the idea of my going to university, and they did not support me at all.
Wow.
You know, not a penny. So I had to earn a scholarship. When I left home, I was responsible for everything, my own housing, my own food, my transportation, everything. So it meant that I worked pretty much full time all the time that I was a student, uh, which was hard, right? Because I would see
Very
young,
hard.
very hard, and I would see young people around me who were going off and going to bars and having fun and just doing things, and I would go to class and then go work
Wow.
for 8 hours. I was fortunate that I got a very good job, a job that I enjoyed, that I found interesting and fulfilling. It was a job working with French Canadian youth who were interested in learning English.
Okay.
And I did that job for 7 years through my undergraduate degree and through my master's degree. So I was fortunate. I was making for a student, pretty good money.
Okay.
But even back then, this is 40 years ago, and I was making, say, $13 an hour, which was pretty
Yeah.
good. Back, because it was bilingual. I had to speak French most of the time. So I was fortunate in that I got a good job. I enjoyed the job. I worked hard. And, in many ways, my life was turning out the way I wanted it to. One of the things I found, though, was because I had all of this difficulty from when I was young that I hadn't dealt with in any way. I'd never gotten serious counseling. I never really addressed any of the problems from my past. I ended up marrying a man who was an alcoholic. And I mean, in many ways, he was, a good person, a nice person, very intelligent, very funny. He was an English student like I was. We loved all the same things. We talked about books. We had a great group of friends, but he was an extremely heavy drinker all the time and very abusive. Uh, and I ended up staying in that marriage for 19 years.
Wow.
19 years is a long time. And we had two amazing children. So I'm grateful every day for that. My kids are just the best people I know. But the relationship itself left me very unwell. I had no confidence. I was worried all the time. I had panic attacks. I never knew from one day to the next if he was going to be kind to me or be, out of his mind drunk. He was drunk most of the time. I also covered this up. No one in my family knew. No one in my friends knew. I kept that secret for almost 20 years. Yeah. Meanwhile, raising my kids and, got my PhD, got a teaching job, wrote books and all that kind of thing. But in the meantime, I had this terrible secret and it exhausted me all the time. It made me ill. One of the things I learned is that alcoholics and other addicts, they are people who suffer from a
Yeah.
sickness, but their sickness travels to the people that they live with. Not that I wasn't a drinker, but I became so fearful and worried all the time that I was sick in my heart and in my soul. I was sick all the time. And finally, I hit a kind of crisis moment where I realized that if I didn't do something, I couldn't look at that point. I had one child, that I couldn't look after my child. And so I went and got some help and ended up in counseling and in a 12-step program. There are 12-step programs for people who are family members of alcoholics. It's called Al-Anon. Saved my life. Really helped me understand that I couldn't do anything about my husband. I couldn't change his behavior. I couldn't argue with him, and there was nothing I could do about him. What I needed to do was look after myself and to get well. And that really was the thing that set me on the course of the rest of my life. Eventually, my first marriage ended. My first husband, who was a also a professor, ended up having a relationship with one of his students who was 20 years younger than him, and leaving, and that was really traumatic. And I was a single parent for quite a while with two very, very small children. And then ended up marrying another man who was very, very kind to me and a very good person. And we raised our four kids together, and then all good things happen. And so maybe I'll stop there, Linda. That's
Yeah.
an awfully long story.
Thank you. No, thank you so much. These
Yeah,
stories are what young people need, because a lot of them are coming from very troubled
yeah.
backgrounds, and they're asking themselves, can I ever make purpose out of my life with all this
Mhm.
toxic environment that I find myself in? So that's one of the reasons why I want you to share your story, so that they
Mhm.
can hear that though coming from poor home or toxic, at least a toxic parent, because not because she intentionally decided to be toxic, but because she had an undiagnosed illness which made her toxic to some point.
Yeah,
And but you still made something out of your life. And I know a few of them that got into relationships and they're wondering, how can I ever become something better, even with this, relationship that is killing me? So your
mhm.
story, it's more like making us know that, yeah, you can make a lemonade out of every lemons that come your way. Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's why I really want you to share it. It's going to inspire them. It's going to make them know that you work hard and you're focused. You can always get whatever you want to get, despite your environment or despite the people around you, and not to stay too long in any toxic relationship or toxic
absolutely.
environment. Remember, you this generation, you know better than we did in our time and in Lynn's time. So please do not say, "Oh, Lynn stayed for 19 years. I should stay for 19 years." No, you shouldn't stay in any toxic relationship, please. So we're gonna get into questions. And so we're going to ask the first question. And please, I know some people said, "Oh, I have questions that I didn't send in." And I just want you to listen to what Lynn is saying today. And please, your question should align so that I can take your question. Just put your question in the comment section as you hear her speak, and then I'm going to take your question. But these questions were all put together by all of you. So I'm going to ask her the questions. I didn't put them together. So the first question is, why is purpose discovery important?
Mm. I would say it's really important because it just keeps you on track through all of those difficult things. So all of the difficulties that I described, having, I was very poor when I was young, like very poor, like going to the food bank to get food, right? I was very, very poor. But I had so much drive. I know what I wanted to do so much. I wanted to get my PhD. I wanted to be a professor. I wanted to teach English. And it just kept me going through. I never gave up. There were days I came really close to giving up and just saying, you know what, it's too hard. I'm not going to go to school anymore. I'm just going to quit and get a job. I'm tired of being hungry. I'm tired of working, 16-hour days, and never getting to relax or have a vacation or, do anything. But I wanted that goal so much that it just kept me going forward. And I said I was fortunate because I knew when I was about 5 years old what I wanted to do. I just
Wow.
loved books so much. It was so much fun.
Wow, wow. I'm sure we're listening. Discovery for purpose kind of gives you focus, and it makes you not to ever stop on track. You just make sure you get to the finish line. Thank you, Adrienne, for capturing what she said. Please, I hope we have our pens. I have my book and my pen, and I'm taking notes. Let's not just listen and just be emotional. It's not the aim of the program is not to make us emotional. It's for us to to get very important points that can help us to shape our lives this year. So thank you so much for that. So the next question is, how do I know when I've found my purpose?
Mm, wow. Well, I said I found mine very young, so I was fortunate, but it was the thing that always made me happy, right? However difficult my life was, I could always pick up, a great novel or a play by Shakespeare or a poem that I really loved, and I could just feel just intense happiness. Just and a sense that there were ideas that were bigger than me, right? That there was something bigger than me, and um, I think that that's how you know when you find that thing that whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
If it's sports, if it's going to school, if whatever it is, raising children, whatever gives you that sense of fulfillment, that you're doing the thing that you're best at, and that you really really love doing it. And it said it helps to put all other things in perspective. Very beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow, this is amazing. I had to take it down. Whatever makes you happy, whatever gives you the sense of fulfillment is your purpose. That, like I told us when we started, is purpose is not something very far-fetching. It's not something you need to start thinking, how do I get, what are the books I should read? No, it's just whatever that gives you the sense of fulfillment. Thank you so much. So this question is funny, but since they asked, I'm going to ask you, where do I start in finding purpose? I think you've answered it, but I'll just let
Yeah,
you shed light
yeah.
on it.
Well, and it said, I know that there are people who find purpose, many different kinds of purpose in life, but um, and not everybody knows when they're 5 years old what
Exactly.
they want to do. So I guess I was lucky that way. But I always encourage, particularly young people, to just interact with different things. When you go to school, if you go to university or college or whatever you do, don't limit yourself to one kind of class, and particularly not because somebody thinks that's what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
I have taught so many English students over the years who have come into my classrooms and said, oh, my parents really want me to be a doctor, or my parents really want me to be a teacher, or they really want me to be an engineer. And then they start reading literature and they just love it.
Mm-hmm.
They're just so excited by it. And they always say, well, I'll never get a job if I have an English degree. You can get a job with any kind of degree, right?
That's true.
If
Yeah.
you're good at it, right? You have to do what you're really good at. And if you're really good at something, somebody will
That's
notice. So you have to do what makes you happy and fulfilled, not what other people
mm-hmm.
think you should do, because you spend so much of your life working. That's something you don't realize when you're young. You spend 80% of your time working
That's true.
throughout your life, so you might as well be doing something that you actually like.
Hmm. Thank you so much. It still boils down to the previous question that she gave an answer to, whatever makes you happy. That's where you
Mhm.
should start from,
Yeah.
finding your purpose. You don't need to travel from one country to the other to find your purpose. Just start from the basics. What makes you happy?
Mhm.
What are you elated doing? That's how to find your purpose. It might be in things that are very, very small, things that don't look significant, but that's where you start. So the next question is, how can a multi-passionate person choose between two paths or options?
Yeah. Well, I would say maybe in some cases you don't have to, right? I mean, I know people who, have two or three things in their lives that they're really good at. For instance, I have a nephew who's very, very good in business. He works in business, but he's also a really passionate musician. And on the weekends he plays for a church, and he plays music all over the place. So, and I don't think you ever have to limit yourself to one thing in life. So I've been saying over and over how much I love teaching literature. And in fact, for the last 20 years, I haven't taught literature very much, which may sound like I've kind of lost my way. But the reason I haven't is that I also became interested in leadership. And
Okay.
I realized, I'd had a great career teaching English full time and writing books about literature and going to conferences and doing all of that. But I came to a point where I felt that I was ready for something else. And that's why I have all these jobs. That's why I'm going to be joining Laurentia University in a few months as its president, because I also got very interested in leadership and in the impact you can have as a leader. So I would say don't feel that there's kind of one thing, right? There's one thing in your life, and that's what you have to stick to forever. You change as you grow older, right? You have different experiences and different things that you can give to people. So don't feel that you need to kind of, that there's one kind of golden thing out there that you have to find, and if you don't find it, you're lost. You will find many things in your life
Mhm.
that are important to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Because this particular question, almost 5% sent in this question. They are multi-passionate. What path should they choose? And I'm glad you're saying it to them. And if you're watching or you're listening, just know that you can pursue anything. You can do. Just don't limit yourself to one thing. Thank you so much, Lynn. This is so empowering. So the next question is, and please, if you're watching us and you do have question and based on what she's been explaining, just feel free to drop it in the comment section and I'm going to read it out for her. But it should be in line with what she's explaining, please. The next question is, can there be a relationship between someone's career and someone's purpose?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I would say, I've been fortunate that, what I always loved, I was able to do as a career. Not everybody, has that. Some people will have a job that they do during the day and then they pursue their real passions in the evening, right, or in the weekends or in their free time.
Yeah.
I was always very fortunate that my career gave me that sense of fulfillment. The price of that was that it took a long time to get there because I had to go to university for 13 years, in order to get the education that I needed in order to have a career that gave me that sort of fulfillment. And not everybody obviously is going to do that. But when you can find a career that gives you that sense of joy and fulfillment every day, you have a happy life. But I said, and I know many. I just mentioned my nephew, right? I mean, he works during the day, but he's a very talented musician, and he pursues that passion outside of his work life. So it could be either, or it could be both.
Okay, thank you so much. So hear me, you can be either or you can be both. And that's to say that there's a very great relationship between both.
Mhm.
Like for Lynn, her career is a purpose, it's a passion, and for others it's something else, but the relationship can still be there. Thank you. So this question says, what role do values play in finding one's purpose?
Yeah, I think values are very important because they help you to decide what kinds of things you will pursue and things you will not pursue. So, for instance, when I was young, I often had people say, "Oh, you're a good writer. You should consider being a lawyer." And I have the greatest respect. I work with lawyers all of the time, but that was not the sort of work that I wanted to do. Right? It didn't really express my values in terms of working with the law or making a lot of money being a lawyer. I didn't really want that. Um, I was more interested in the sorts of things that would allow me, uh, first of all, to be engaged with literature that I loved, but also to work with young people. I've worked with you heard me talking about working with French Canadians. I started doing that when I was 18 years old. I've always worked with young people, and to me, that's an important value of sharing with young people and touching people's lives in an important way. So that was a value I had to pursue, and that to me was more important than going after some sort of career that would have probably earned me a lot more money than I've ever made in my life. But yeah, values to me, values are how you choose, right? Between one thing and another.
Good. Good. And just to add to what Lynn is saying, when she mentioned lawyer and as opposed to teaching,
Mhm.
I remember when I was young and because I know how to interview people, I know how to talk. I was the only child that adults like to sit with. I have a lot of adults, they will sit with me and they will talk with me. And then people just my mom just assumed you will be a lawyer. And if you won't study law, I'm not going to pay your fees and all
Mhm.
that. I need you to be a lawyer. You can talk, you can relate with older people, you can relate with your age mates and the younger ones. But I never liked law. I'm sorry, I never liked practicing. Sorry, I don't like the career. I like law, just understand the law, but not for me to make it as my career. I wanted to teach. I wanted to just be with people, and so while you were just explaining this point, it just dawned on me like, hey, I also passed through this. You need to be a lawyer because you can talk, because you can relate with people, you can argue. Especially I can argue, so you need to be a lawyer. So thank you for this. Your values are what shapes whatever you become. So thank you. The next question is, are there common misconceptions about finding one's purpose that I need to be aware of?
Um, yeah, I think I've mentioned one. It's kind of like, when people start off and think about finding a spouse or a partner, that there's like one human being in the entire world, and you have to find that one person. Realistically, that's not how life works, right? I mean, you may end up in one solid relationship in your life, but there are many people that you interact with. I would say it's the same. One misconception is that, as said, we all have some sort of innate, preordained purpose. I don't think it's like that. I think it's that, you discover over the course of your life what brings you fulfillment, what brings you joy, what allows you to contribute to the world, to make an impact on people's lives. All the time. So often I have former students write to me. I had one write to me this week saying, you made such an impact on my life.
Yes.
That that
And you do.
that's well, thank you. Well, and he made an impact on mine, right? As did you, Linda. So, I think if you approach the idea of purpose, that it's kind of like a quest for a grail that you'll never find, then it's frustrating. I think it's more, really kind of listening to yourself, reflecting on what you value, what you enjoy, where you can make a difference. That's the way to go at it. It shouldn't be a mystery.
Thank you so much. Yes, yes. All the misconceptions. I'm sure. Can someone just put them together because I wrote them down. Um, Thinking that there's one predetermined path that my parents have been saying that this is the path I need to follow, and so this is the path that must lead me to my purpose. No, just bear in mind what brings fulfillment, what gives you joy, something you love to do, something you love to contribute to. Those are the parts that always end up in you finding purpose. So please, if we can just put it down so that those who are just joining, I'm seeing a few people joining, they can just catch up with what we've been discussing, please. So the next question, it says, how can I stay motivated and committed to my purpose on the long run?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. And I will say, that it's easy to get discouraged, right? I mean, there were times, particularly when I was young, when I was, I said, working so many hours, and I was always tired, I was always hungry. It's easy to get discouraged, right? And just think, it's not worth it. It's too much. I can't expect this much out of myself. Nobody would blame me if I just stepped aside. But when you give up, it's very difficult to get back.
Yes.
If you're on a path, if you stepped off it for a while and just say, I've seen people do this, I'll just stop going to school for a couple of years. I need a
Yeah.
break. Okay? By and large, they never go back.
Yes.
They
They
don't,
don't.
right?
Yes.
Right? So I think it's very important to acknowledge to yourself when you're feeling discouraged, and to allow yourself to say, I'm tired, I'm frustrated, I'm tired of being hungry, I'm tired of being poor, I'm tired of working this hard, and just acknowledging that. And it's okay to say that out loud. Some people in life have a much easier road. It's true. I went to all school with all sorts of people who, when I would work, all of whatever break we got, and they would go skiing or go on some vacation to a beach, or, whatever,
Yeah.
as their parents paid for
Yeah.
everything. Um, you know, but I think in retrospect, I think I value my education probably more than those
Okay.
people do, right? Because I know how hard I worked to get it. I know how many times I had to kind of pull myself up when I was ready to give up and quit and just say, it's too hard, I can't do it. And I just kept going. I'll tell one quick story, which is when I was a PhD student. We always had to apply every year to get scholarships, from the federal government. And every year I would do my best, and I would write up my application, and, I would apply. And every year I would get turned down, which was very frustrating. So I really needed the money. And I remember the head of the graduate program this is at Western University in London. called me in one day and said, you never get a scholarship. Maybe you should decide to drop out. Maybe you should just not be here anymore. And I said, you know what? Thank you. Because the best thing you could have done for me right now is tell me to quit. Because now I will never quit. Because someone was trying to push me out. And, strangely, I was in there were 10 people in my PhD year. 4 of them finished. All the ones who got big scholarships every year didn't finish.
See?
They all dropped out in the end, never finished. So, like you have to, sometimes you just, like you really have to just reach deep into yourself and say, this is what I want, and no one is going to stop me from doing this.
Good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I hope we heard that story, because a lot of us, you always want someone to encourage you. Be your encourager. You always want someone to motivate you, someone to make you not to give up. What if everyone around you tells you to give up? So what happens? So you
Yeah.
give up. No, but you heard her story. It might look like, oh, it's long time ago. It's not. It's the same thing, the same scenario that we are all facing in this is it 2024? It's the same thing. There's no difference. So it's just you be your own self motivator. Be the one that would inspire yourself, or should I say, whatever destination you want to get to, let it motivate you, let it inspire you, so that you don't just face hard times and then you just quit. No, you don't quit. All right. And so we're gonna take the next question. And if you do have any question, feel free to to drop it, and I'm gonna take it for. I'll just read it out for Lynn to answer. How does external factors like societal expectations influence one's sense of purpose?
I think they can quite a lot, particularly, if you're thinking about, influence of family or, the community that you grow up in. Those things can be really powerful influencers on your life. I said I grew up in, a little tiny town in southern Ontario. I was a kid in the 1960s. It was becoming more common for women to have jobs and have educations, but it was still there's still kind of transition time there for women. So I felt a lot of pressure growing up to get married. I was in fact engaged when I was 18 to a man from my hometown. Fortunately, I ended up not not getting married at 18. I was really glad I didn't. But I really felt a lot of pressure to conform to a certain way of being and a way of living. And I knew that I would be very, very unhappy if I did that. And so it was hard because I said, I left my hometown, I left my family. There was a period where I was completely estranged from my family. My own parents wouldn't speak to me. My sister did, but she was the only person in the family who spoke to me. And that was hard, right? It's hard, you feel kind of alone in the world, but, it worked itself out in time, when they understood that kind of pressure was not going to force me to be something that I didn't want to be.
Yeah. Good, good, good. Oh my God, this is amazing. I'm sure we heard her. Don't let pressures, to shape into what you are not. Don't let people make you bend just because you want to please them. Um,
Mhm.
um, like for example, I know we do have youth here in North America joining us, but let me give this example. In Nigeria, they always
Mhm.
tell you, oh, it's a woman's job to cook, it's a woman's job to clean, it's your job to you must be a wife. Don't let all that. These are
Mhm.
lies that they use to manipulate you, to just put you in a box. Don't let anyone
Mhm.
put you in a box. All right. You heard what Lynn said. If they want to stop communicating with you, or just make you look like an outsider, be an outsider, just so that you can fulfill your purpose, you can get to your destination, and not just conform to
Mhm.
their mode, all because you want to please people that are insecure. All right. So thank you so
Mhm.
much, Lynn, for that. And the last question, if you do have any question, please. Okay, someone asked a question. I just hope I've not. Okay. Adrian says, did you ever feel inferior with your purpose? If yes, how did you handle the issue of feeling like your purpose didn't make sense of or wasn't as relevant as that of others?
Wow, that's a great question. And I can tell you through so much of my life, I felt inferior. Um, mostly because I came from a working class family, right? I didn't have parents who went to university. I didn't, other than my brother, I didn't even know anybody who went to university. And you know, here I was spending my entire life working in universities. You know, and I always feeling that, you know, I didn't have the same kind of background. I hadn't traveled all over the world. I didn't have rich friends. You know, I didn't have any of that kind of thing. I was just a, you know, a kid from a working class family, you know, in the country in Southern Ontario. And it was, you know, it took a long time for me to realize that, um, I'm valuable just as I am. And other people have, you know, kind of the accident of birth that they were raised in different ways. But there was value in the way I was raised too, right? You know, I talked about my dad being a great leader, a great manager. I learned so much from him,
Yeah.
right? You know, I will tell you, you know, because I'm in this period in my life where I'm about to start a new job. It took me 9 tries to get a president's job.
My God.
9 times.
You see why
But you know what?
this man inspires
Thank
me.
you. I
Wow, nine
you know,
tries. I was
9 tries.
listening. My
Yeah,
God.
9 tries. But I was determined. I was not going to give up because I knew I would be a good president, and I know I will be. But you know, it was discouraging because I would see the people who would get, you know, I would apply for jobs, and people would get the jobs who were, you know, most of them men, almost
Yeah.
always a man. Uh, Almost all of them either scientists or, you know, engineers. And so a woman who writes about literature is not seen as valuable as a man who's an
Yeah.
engineer. Um, you know, so you know, it was discouraging at times, and there were times I thought, nope, I'm, you know, because it was a great deal of work to apply for these jobs over and over and over again, and to constantly be turned down. But I knew that if I kept going, I would get there, right? You know, and that was, you know, it was a sense of, you know, finding an institution, which I have found in Laurentian University, that needs me as much as I need them. Um,
Good.
yeah, and it will be a good relate. I just came back actually. I was just in Sudbury the last 3 days, going up to look for a place to live. So, and everyone there was so kind and so welcoming. And so, you know, sometimes you have to find the place where you fit.
Good.
Yeah, yeah, took a while.
Wow. Thank you so much. Before the last question, I remember the first time I went to Lynn's office, and I don't know if I've said this publicly, but I know I've said this within my inner circle. And I went to her office, and she took me to the president's office at the university, which is Brock University, and she just said she's applying for this position. And I just looked at, I said, you will make a good president. And I remember leaving that office, and I actually prayed for her. And I told my husband was not in Canada then. I called him. I said, Lynn deserves to be president. I don't know if it's Brock or any university. She's amazing. Like she's a great personality, and we don't usually see such kind of people in leadership. We always see the opposite, people who feel they need to be served. No, leaders are people that serve, people that are kind, people that are understanding, people that can sit with whoever it is, not about position, class, or anything, but you can just you can relate with everybody, and you've been at the lowest and you climb from the lowest to the top. That means you can actually deal with the people at the top and as well deal with the people at the bottom. And I just told myself, Lynn will be very good. And I've never stopped saying that. And I never knew, I'm just hearing it just as you are, that she tried 9 times. So that means, Linda, you need to sit up. How many times? Whatever you've been pursuing, you need to sit up and keep pursuing. Even if they keep saying no, I'll keep pursuing it.
Yeah,
And thank you so much, Lynn, for that. 9 times.
yeah.
Then I'm just starting my ride. So please, in case you dropped a question and I didn't say it, I'm so sorry. Can you repeat the question? Adrian, thank you for that question. So we're about to take our last question, and then Lynn will do a closing remark. But please, if you have any intelligent question, just like Adrian did, feel free to drop your question so that we can take the question. And this last question that I have says, how can I overcome self-doubt and fear when pursuing my purpose?
Yeah, no, that's so important because you always have to be your biggest fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to. If you're not in your corner, nobody else will be, right? You have
Yes.
to keep believing in yourself no matter what.
Yes.
And as I said, there are days when you get discouraged, but um, one of the wisest things I've ever read is that you should always treat yourself the way you would treat someone that you really cared about, who would come to you for support or advice. Um, right? So if
Absolutely.
you're critical, yeah, if you're critical of yourself, if your best friend came to you and said, I'm really struggling with someone, how would you respond to that person? So, I mean, you need to be that friend to yourself. You need to be kind to yourself. You shouldn't, I mean, not to say that you don't try to do better, but if you are constantly critical of yourself, then you hold yourself back. And in those years when I was living with my first husband, when it was so difficult, I had no self-confidence.
Hmm.
Uh, I had, because he was constantly telling me I was worthless, right? He told me every day that I was worthless. So I started to feel that and I believed it. Um, and now, since I'm out of that abusive relationship, I don't feel worthless. And I know that have, I have to respect myself and treat myself as a person of value. Uh, and also, it's really easy to compare yourself to people who, as I said, who have more money or have more education or have more, you know, all those things. None, none of that really matters in the end, right? I said I go back to, my parents who, had no education at all, but were very good people. Never had a lot of money, never had a fancy house, never, nothing like that. So you have to get away from those kind of superficial ways of evaluating people and look for actual real value in people.
Thank you so much. And Adrian, thank you for taking time to drop the points. Yes, be kind to yourself. I often say to us, when people come to me and young people come to me and they keep complaining and complaining, and I just ask a simple question: if your friend was going through what you're going through, what would you say to the person? And then at that point, you become a good advisor. You become someone that really want them to do better, but then you are very hard on yourself. You don't be hard on you. Try to be nice. When I came to Canada to study, it was a 10 years study gap. It was really difficult for me. The first semester, I didn't have friends. I hadn't found somebody like Lynn. All my lecturers were men, and and my class, they were mainly online. It was very difficult for me. I haven't studied outside of Nigeria, so I was really finding it difficult. I remember a lecturer said I copied and reported me to the dean. I'm sure Lynn is hearing it for the first time, and reported me to the dean and Susan, and a panel was set up that was my first semester. They just were set up for me, for them to discuss why I copied. I didn't cite it, and I was still learning how to cite. And I didn't have anybody. They asked me if I had anybody I wanted to invite to the meeting. I didn't have anybody. I didn't know any lecturers. And then so I said, I don't know anyone. I wish it was the semester I'd met you. I would have just invited you. And I sat there and they asked me. I said, yes, I don't know how to cite, and I just use the material. I'm still learning how to cite materials, articles, and all that. And meanwhile, I'm coming from Nigeria. I have more than 10 years study gap. I'm still learning. I'm guilty, but I'm still learning. And the dean was like, and Susan, she was like, okay, you go through training. After the training, we'll certify if you're okay, and that's fine. And I was sent to do training on citations and all that. The lady, her name is Anne, that was to do the training, is not my friend, and she just told me, don't mind them. Whenever you need to cite, just use Google. I was so, she said, oh, even me with all the degrees that I'm training people, I still find it difficult to cite very well. Just use Google. Say, Google, how do I cite this in MLS? Google will tell you. And she said, do not tell them. And I'm like, oh my God. And here you are querying me because I didn't use Google to do that.
Mhm.
And she just wrote, you fast. I'm going to tell the dean that you've passed. Don't let them bother you. Just use Google and find, and you'll see how to cite. And that was it. I didn't give up. I know a lot of people would have given up. Oh, I'm old. I'm not very old, but like I'm old, study gap and all that. I didn't give up. I'm just trying to tell us what Lynn is saying. I told myself, I was nice to myself. I said, you made a mistake. But if we don't make mistakes, we're not going to learn. I
Right.
made a mistake. I'm going to face the panel and I'm going to tell them, I don't know it. That's why I made a mistake. But now I know
Mhm.
it. I do better. So be kind to yourself. Be your own encourager, your own cheerleader. You know, that's the way that you can pursue whatever you want to pursue and get to your destination. So do we have any questions? Like, we are enjoying everything, and I know Lynn is touching every area, and it's more like it's so difficult to think of any question because she covered everything. So do we have any other question? If we don't, Lynn is just going to give us a closing remark, and yes, okay. She's going to give us a closing remark, and we're going to see her sometime in July where she will talk about her school.
Yeah,
Um, you know, for those who are interested, I want to come in there. So you can answer any question. What will be in the school for me? What is it like there?
mhm.
Are there scholarships? Are there opportunities? So we'll bring her when she's settled, at least 3 months. She's sat on that role, and then we can bring her to talk about her
Yeah,
school.
that would
Okay.
be fine.
So, okay, so Lynn, just give us a kind of finishing thoughts and finding purpose.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and thank you everyone who's joining. I wish I could see you, see your faces and interact with you in person, but maybe someday. I want to thank you for listening to my stories. I mean, I think we all have stories, right? All of our lives are stories. I think that's one of the reasons I love literature so much, is that living really is about creating your own story. And I guess what I would say in terms of purpose is, the idea that you should do what makes you happy. I'm, especially as I get a bit older, I'm more and more struck at how quickly life goes by.
Yes.
And, it is so important to do things that fulfill you, that matter to you, that you can have an impact on other people, that make you proud of what you do. Those are all very important things. I guess the other thing I would say is don't ever count yourself out, right? I said I'm a first generation university goer. I said my brother was the first person in my family ever to go to university,
Hmm.
and he's a little bit older than I am. Nobody else in my family either side had ever gone to university. It just wasn't a thing. And now I'm going to be a university president. Like that. In some ways, it seems like a fairy tale that shouldn't happen. But you can do anything you want to do if you just. I said you got to believe in yourself. You have to, stay on track. Don't get discouraged. And when you are discouraged, give yourself the grace to understand that you're human, that you're allowed to feel frustrated sometimes. And as Linda said, you're allowed to make mistakes. That to me was one of the most important things I learned in my life, is that I suffered from terrible perfectionism when I was young. And when I learned that I'm actually allowed to make mistakes, my life got a lot happier. You can forgive yourself. You learn from things and you move on. Like, we're all human. Nobody goes through life without making mistakes. Nobody.
Oh, nobody. Yeah.
Nobody at all.
Yeah.
Right? So, I said, give yourself grace.
Mhm.
Because if you don't, nobody else will. So maybe I'll end there, Linda.
Thank you so
But thank you.
much. Thank you so much. Can we appreciate Lynn? Since you don't have questions, then appreciate her. Let the appreciation be your questions. Thank you so much. We were so, this is beyond what I anticipated. And I know that a lot of questions that even weren't captured, you actually captured everything. And thank you so much, audience, for listening. And sorry we had to bring it to Instagram.
Oh,
Yeah, we're trying to build Instagram. Facebook is well built, and we're trying to grow the Instagram. So if we keep doing everything on Facebook, we're not going to won't be able to grow the Instagram. That's why we brought it on Instagram. But not to worry. It's streaming on Facebook. Once we end, we're gonna stream it on Facebook because we couldn't stream at the same time. So those of you that really wanted to be on Facebook, we're posting the video on Facebook and on YouTube so that you can watch after now. So thank you so much, and find that thing that makes you happy. That is all this is all about. Stay
Right.
on track, stay on course, be nice to yourself, allow yourself
Mhm.
to make mistakes, learn from your mistake, be your own motivator, your own cheerleader. Okay, don't be scared, don't be afraid to make mistakes, don't be afraid to fail. Even when they call you before a panel like they did, tell them, I own my mistake and I'm sorry. And that's all. And maybe they'll ask you, just go and learn from Google. Google will teach you, like I was told. And that's also thank you. And remember, one thing Lynn said is she tried 9 times of this position. 9 times. In fact, maybe I failed 3 times and I'm telling myself, look at you, you are failing. In fact, I will never say that to myself again. So, and if you're watching today, especially the girls, don't worry if you fail, rise. And the guys, I'm not just speaking to the girls. No, I know for the girls, it's usually harder on them. When you fail, it looks like, oh, the boys are doing well. No, if you fail, remember, just get up, dust yourself, and keep going, keep running. You will get there. All right. Always have a dream and pursue your dream, regardless of whatever the situation is. All right. So thank you so much from Lynn and from myself. We say thank you. We're gonna have her. I know we so love her. You see why I love her? Good. So we're gonna bring her. We're gonna bring her back at least by July. Why? Because I want her to get settled in her office, and then we can ask her questions about her role in her school. For those of you that are really interested in coming there, because if you remember 2 years ago when we had her, she said she would be willing to meet with us, to see us. So we're going to remind her, in case any of you comes to that university, just let me
Mhm.
know and I will take you to our office. And you'll be like, I was in your broadcast 2 years ago. I was in your
That
broadcast this
would
year,
be good.
and now I'm in your university. So give me VVIP treatment. That's what we're going to say to her.
I would love that. That would
All
be great.
right. So,
All
Lynn,
right.
thank you so much for this,
Thank you,
and do have a
everybody. Have
wonderful
a
weekend.
wonderful day,
Bye bye.
everybody. Thank you. Bye bye.
Yeah. So bye everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we're gonna I'm about to wrap it up. Thank you. It's 1 hour of being with us. I'm going to see you some other time. Get set for what we're about to do. All right. God bless you and bye bye.